The tree was here before we were. All that we read about what happened before us includes the tree. You know, all the history books, all the papers, all the discourses that were written by anybody about the beginnings of this church and this town refer to the tree.
It really is the fabric of the community for its longevity, its ability to sustain, to outlive just about anything else that's ever been here.
This side of heaven, that oak tree is as powerful of a reminder of what eternity looks like and feels like as anything we'll ever experience.
It's always been there. I have a hard time imagining the place without it. It makes me sad.
Okay, the tree we're talking about, we have an expert here on the tree, Mr. Mike Reynolds, a documentarian from Great Oak. I can't read what that says.
Great Oak Movie.
Oh, movie. GreatOakMovie.com. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, Mike's the director.
Mike is the director of the Great Oak Movie. Good afternoon, Mike Reynolds. Welcome to Let's Talk.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you both for having me here today.
Sure.
Okay, so
yeah, it's amazing. The website is greatoakmovie.com.
Okay,
and it's a beautiful website.
Thank you.
And the pictures are just heartbreaking. If you have a chance to go on and look, I don't know, it just made me really sad. So tell us all about it. How you got started. What made you want to create the documentary?
Yeah, well, I'm a filmmaker. I went to NYU Film School years ago, and we live in Basking Ridge. We live in the center of town, and from our second-story window, when the tree was in its full growth, we could actually see the canopy. So it was something that was very personal to us as a family. We'd often go over there. It's a very peaceful place. It's inside an historic cemetery, so between this really beautiful old tree, the historic graves around it, it really created a wonderful space for contemplation, for just kind of, thinking about your life and just finding a quiet place in a world that it's harder to find that. Mm-hmm. So when there was an announcement made by the Basking Ridge Presbyterian Church elders that they were going to be taking the tree down, I thought it was an important thing to document this wonder of nature and have for future generations something that they could refer to. Because once something's gone, I mean, it does slip from our memory so quickly that this was the desire was to really document this thing of wonder that it affected this community.
So the tree is the oldest tree in the United States?
Well, it's the oldest white oak tree. There are older trees, but this white oak, which they normally live, or on average, let's say they live about 300 to 400 years, this one made it to 619 years, which is really incredible.
And who made the decision to take it down?
Well, it was a really complicated decision, which I learned while making the film, in that the tree had stopped full bloom. The upper crown was not turning green. And the church elders have become concerned about possible safety issues with this and with limbs falling onto the headstones or passersby, of course. And they had brought in a whole bunch of experts to determine what was going on with the tree. And there is where something really interesting came out, is that trees, unlike other living entities, are really complex. There's root systems, trunks, limbs, all of which can live or pass away while other parts stop to function. So in other words, they found where root systems could be 1,000 years old with limbs being 200. Scientists then learning that what had happened was limbs or parts of a trunk could, through disease or natural disaster, die, but the roots actually be able to bring fresh life again if given enough time and nutrients through the soil. So it really was a very challenging decision in that they had to assess what was the likelihood that the tree could rebound, what would be required to do that, and what were the safety risks. So that was a process that was internal to that church, which are the stewards of that tree, being that it's on their property.
And they decided that it wasn't going to make it.
That's right. And then they were shopping for someone to take it down, which also became a challenge. A local tree care company, Kyling Tree Care, were the ones to take it down. But even in the film, Keith, the owner, had indicated it was a really tough decision to accept the job, for its complications. It's in an historic cemetery. He couldn't take it down through the normal means. He would actually have to get a crane to lift it out, to not have any heavy equipment anywhere near the tree because of all the historic headstones near it. But also just the emotional impact of taking down such a beloved symbol of a community. In fact, the tree is present throughout Bernards Township, which is where the tree was located. It's part of the symbol used for the township itself. It's on the police officers' badges, etc. It really was very symbolic of the community and its development over the years, from a rural community to now really a hub of industrial New Jersey, with a lot of big corporations located in or nearby. So so the tree care company then had to come up with the plan for getting the tree down safely without being anywhere near the historic cemetery. And one of the more engaging and really melancholy moments in the film is the 2-day process. It actually took 2 full work days to take the tree down and get it on its way. But that,
that's documented in your documentary.
Yes, it is. It is all there. We shot about 40 hours of footage because we did a 2-camera plus drone shoot for 2 8-hour work days to take the tree down. So it was a lot of footage to go through. But I thought that for people to really feel the impact of loss, they needed to see this process. And I still get upset every time I see it.
Yeah.
And I hope that is part of what people take away from it, is an impetus to take care of the environment around us, and also, as far as anything historical, to just be mindful of preservation, how important it is to keep things like the old barns that are scattered throughout New Jersey, properties that are related to the Revolutionary War, which New Jersey was such a key player in, that we just don't want to see these things go away. And as much as we can, we want to be involved in our communities and our local histories, which are so rich.
Now, I understand some of it was use some of the branches and to replant to try and keep it going. Did I hear?
Yeah, there's a really triumphant moment in the film. There is a professor, Tom Umbrella, from Union County College. And on the grounds of Union County College in Cranford, there is an historic tree grove started by Professor Tom. He travels around to anywhere where there is a tree of historical significance. So he'll go to Mount Vernon and get acorns from trees growing there. He found seedlings from the survivor tree over by World Trade Center, etc. And he grows them on the grounds there as part of his biology class. He had gotten some acorns from the great oak about 15 years prior, maybe a little longer, almost 20, and he had started to grow them. He had worked with the church for a fundraising campaign to sell some of these saplings, but he was so taken with the tree, he grew one as well. When he had found out that the great oak was going to be taken down, he and the church elders at the Presbyterian Church got together, and they were able to transport a 15-foot tall sapling known as the baby oak from Cranford up to the graveyard of the church in Basking Ridge. And we now do have, for 2 seasons now, the baby oak has been continuing to grow there. So it was a great example, I think, in the film that, loss and change are inevitable, but we, in the form of art, documenting, painters came out and painted, and as well as our scientists, arborists, etc., we could all play a part in not losing completely our past. And in this sense, the birth of the baby oak is just a really triumphant moment.
And there were some concerts or something under there, because I remember somebody I know actually did a thing to try, I don't know if that was to try and save it or to kind of dissuade them from tearing it down, or I don't remember.
Yeah, well, at that point, I think it was accepted that it was going to come down, and Gordon Thomas Ward, who is on the film soundtrack, did a wonderful, wonderful piece called Trees. He played a mini concert under the tree about 2 weeks before the tree came down to kind of gather the community around, let people kind of pay their last respects, to be close to the tree, to be nearby. And he did about 5 songs. I think he was about half hour under there, and it was a really wonderful Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, he used to do the show after us here for years these days. And I know Gordon, he moved back to Maine recently. John has a question?
Yeah. We have historic preservation of buildings in this country, but do we not have it for things like a great oak, which should, if there's a way to preserve something like that, we certainly want to do it. Is there a process for that? And if so, was it too late to have that kick in here?
That's a fantastic question, and something that I learned as this process went along is that no, here in the States, we do not have a process of how we have historic designated buildings.
Right.
And in turn, once a building is designated that, there are different procedures as far as doing work on them or making changes. At least
even the color of the paint.
You got it, right? Yeah.
We have that in Haddonfield, which I lived for many years. We had a historic district downtown. You could not change the color of the paint without going to the historic district council or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and this is all really contributed to keeping so many of these historic buildings intact and around. Not true with nature. In other words, it is strictly the decision of whose ever property that is on, how they're going to handle it. So what I had learned during the course of making the film was that we had received via our website emails from folks in the UK. In the UK, there are tree clubs where villages are charged with caring for trees of historic significance or great age near where they live. And the villagers all participate in making sure the tree stays well, or after weather incidents, work on keeping that tree safe. Here, in this case, as the sole stewards of the tree, because it was on their property, it was a decision that the Basking Ridge Presbyterian Church had to come up with as far as what to do with that tree. And I think the factors that play into it, of course, are what is the main mission of the organization where this tree was located. And in their case, as a fully functioning church, I think that they had to determine budgetarily where would their money go, et cetera. So briefly, early on, there was a campaign possibly to raise some funds to see what could be done about maintaining the tree's life, but I'm not sure how far that went, and the decision segued fairly quickly into an understanding that they were going to take it down.
Yeah. It sounds like the church acted in good faith from what you're saying.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
They, as the reverend of the church had said, that they were stewards of the church, and for 300 years they took care of it. And obviously more recently, not 300 years ago, but they also picked up the tab on the landscaping costs and the repair work. The tree, over the course of its life and its documented history, had it's no longer done, but it had something like 3 tons of cement poured into cavities that had opened up over the years. It also had an extensive system of wires and braces holding up the larger limbs that had begun to sag. So certainly a lot of work had gone into helping the great oak last 619 years.
I hope it was covered by Medicare.
Not too sure about that.
So I was wondering whose voice was on the trailer. The gentleman who spoke, was that the Reverend?
Oh, well, that was a combination of voices, but right. I think possibly the one you're referring to is George Frick, who is a really senior member of that church and their official historian. And he provided a lot of help in giving us a context to the relationship of the Great Oak to the church as well as the town.
Right.
So really that church, which just recently celebrated its 300th anniversary, was founded where it was because of the Great Oak. There is records indicating that the early Scotch Presbyterians, when they came into the area, soon after negotiating with the Lenape Native Americans who were in the area for the property, that they decided that they wanted to build their church right next to this natural wonder, the Great Oak. So, I mean, the history goes so far back.
It sure does. And it's it was a beautiful tree. What a neat looking tree.
That's what first grabbed me, honestly. Yeah. Just when we had come up into town, we moved here about 16 years ago, but we live in my wife's grandparents' home, and they were there since the 30s. My wife used to spend summers in Basking Ridge, and she introduced me to the tree. And when I first saw it, it was just Yeah, it was just amazing. It was like when you look at wonderful art, right? You just get this feeling that it's something so beautiful, so complex. The way the limbs had grown, the way they had twisted over the years, the way weather had affected it, the bark itself. So, yeah, there was just something breathtaking about the beauty of the tree. And in turn, that found a reflection in artwork. In the film, we documented the Great Oak Art Celebration hosted by the Historical Society of the Somerset Hills at their headquarters, the Brick Academy, another historic building right in Basking Ridge, right near where the tree was. And the artwork that came out, well, I'll say it couldn't hold a candle to the beauty of the tree itself, but it was wonderful to see such talented artists also trying to reflect that feeling that you get when you look at something just so beautiful.
Right. That's another way to capture it forever, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
One of the artists had indicated that they really felt that art is a key contributor to our collective memory and that we keep things alive. I mean, obviously, historical records are of key importance. And in many ways, that's a very intellectual process. We read about our history, we think about it, but art touches that other thing that's functions on a much deeper level, or let's just say a more emotional level. Than, we can go to a museum and study something and obviously get so much out of it. But I think the artwork keeps it alive in a different way, that it's something that reinvigorates us when we see it. It's something that almost makes it a living entity still.
Right. And different people absorb things from different formats.
Exactly.
Right? And your documentary is one of those formats.
That's right. And in addition, I think that we have a really robust soundtrack where local musicians have participated in expressing how they felt about the tree in their songs. And to me, that was a real key element to the film. I personally felt it's a documentary, but I thought of it in a parallel to folk music, in that when I think of great folk music, I think of everyday people in a community creating something that expresses life there, that it's very direct and personal. But the paradox is that makes it also universal, right? Because we share these experiences, as simple as they may be. And in this case, it was music that on the soundtrack was doing what I was doing in film. It was reflecting how it felt to live close to something that just so engaged us.
Yes. So the documentary is a little piece of that. Is it playing that music that you're talking of? I mean, the trailer.
Yes,
that we played earlier.
Yep, that piece was composed by Jason Avvo, a great musician who has been in our area often at a place called the Ross Farm, which is another historical site in town where they hold concerts over the summer. And in an example of a real community kind of project, I connected with the Ross Farm. They connected me to musicians. I connected with the Historical Society. They connected me with researchers. So it was really this community coming together to work on this project. But Jason's piece is throughout the film. And what I think is so interesting as a non-musician, Jason is a bass player. And all of that music he created with his bass alone, just doing all different elements or overdubs, whatever the right word is, to create this really intricate soundtrack, which I just think reflects the scenes where it's played so wonderfully.
Okay. We're speaking with Mike Reynolds, documentarian. Now, Gordon Thomas Ward had a song about the tree?
That's right. Yeah. Gordon was one of the first people I contacted when I knew I was going forward with the film about doing soundtrack music. My wife and I had been familiar with Gordon and his first album, as well as the books he had written about the Somerset County's history. And when I chatted with him, he said, yeah, I'm going to do it. And he wrote a wonderful song.
Do we have a recording of that? Does anybody...
it is posted to the website. If you go under music, you could find files of the different songs.
Okay, we'll find it after the break.
And there he is, right there, yeah.
We have to take a break here. We got an email. I was kidding about the school buses before with Alan, from bus driver Paul, of course. None of us likes hampering traffic. No offense taken, just saying. Wish all my stops were at red lights. Can we hear Gordon's song about the tree? So we're going to try and dig that up for you after the break. And I know John has a question. We'll be back. Mike Reynolds, documentarian, thegreatoakmovie.com. And We'll be back in just a few minutes with some more questions for him. We're back now talking with Mike Reynolds, documentarian, greatoakmovie.com. And that's the website for the movie, but is there more information about the tree there, or is there something else people go to for resources about that?
Well, we tried to add some resources there for it, but when you go on there and if you move around, there are ways to find links to other places where you could find info about the tree, such as the Presbyterian Church's site and the Historical Society's website.
And we don't want to let you go without finding out how people can see the movie and how it's doing.
Okay. Well, I'm very happy to say on August 3rd, we did 2 sold-out screenings at the Center for Contemporary Art in Bedminster, and that was a great day. We're going to be playing for all 10th graders in Basking Ridge at the really wonderful state-of-the-art Ridge High School Performing Arts Center. The supervisor for social studies had seen our screening at the Center for Contemporary Art, thought it would be perfect for alignment with the high school's local history and community service curriculum. So we'll be screening there. We're going to have a panel discussion with people involved with the film and with the takedown of the tree. And in April, for the 3-year anniversary of the takedown of the tree, we're very happy to be part of the Montclair Art Museum, which is just a really beautiful, beautiful art museum. We're going to be part of their first Thursday night program. We'll be screening there, and there's also going to be live music as well. As far as going forward, we're very, very proud to have connected with the distributor 1091 Media, and they're going to, starting in February, be making us available on digital and on demand. So that'll be through various cable providers. You'll be able to order us under their documentary category, and then we're also going to be available on things such as iTunes, Google Play, etc. We're also hoping to find a home on History Channel or Discover or etc., and that's something that we'll be working with 1091 about. As a 53-minute film, we really believe that it would be a wonderful fit for an hour-long program.
And you've already won an award?
We did. We're very proud that at Docs Without Borders, we won a Merit Award for environmental documentary. We did try and focus a lot on just how important trees are to urban and suburban development, something a lot of people might not know, but the lead arborist for Killing Tree Care, Rob Gillies, had spoken about just how important it is for managing wastewater, for reducing cooling costs in the heat of summer, for making even things like municipal parking lots last longer by being shaded by trees around them, etc. So there's really a hard value to trees in addition to what we already talked about, which is just the simple beauty of them, as well as the feeling we get from being around them.
And we've seen all the controversy this summer with the fires in the Amazon and how that can affect the climate worldwide.
Yeah, absolutely. And tying into that is just how complex the life of a tree is and how it relates to all the life around it. So in other words, when making this film, what I learned from Rob was that a lot of our landscaping techniques for, let's say, beautifying our suburban environments are actually really detrimental to the life of trees. One of the most basic ways is trees rely on a fungal network that exists around their roots and in the land surrounding them. Through that fungal network, trees communicate with one another. As bizarre as it sounds, they actually can pass warnings to one another about insect infestations or about things like fire. An emergency system exists. When we wipe out this stuff that surrounds our trees, we actually destroy their ability to communicate with one another. And in addition, when we isolate a tree, when we want to, let's say, clear out trees for better sight lines, trees share nutrients with one another through their root system. If one tree begins to fail slightly, they have found out that trees around that ailing tree support it through sending nutrients through the root system. So again, when we feel like we want a better sight line on our home, let's say, et cetera, and we remove 3 out of 4 trees on the property, well, that one remaining tree really begins to struggle because in isolation, it loses communication as well as the nutrients and support of other trees.
So you have officially become a tree nerd. Is that what you're telling us?
I'll say I started with a very just simple love of the beauty of trees, and it really morphed into just an awe at how complex they are, how important they are to life here on Earth, and oddly enough, what social organisms they are, that they actually rely on one another and care for one another.
So what's your next project?
Well, my daughter is a bagpiper with the Guard, which is a pipe and drum band out of Basking Ridge. And I believe that the pipes are, one of the more interesting instruments in the world today. But I've also found out just what a robust culture it is, that there are pipe bands all over the world. In fact, anywhere where the Scottish Highland Regiment went, they left the pipes with them. So there are pipe bands in India, Pakistan, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, Palestine, Israel, as well as, of course, here in the States, where it's really important to a lot of people's cultural heritage. So the project I'm working on right now, and I'm looking to develop it further, is a documentary about piping, global piping, and culminating with the big annual piping event in Edinburgh.
Oh, great.
Interesting. Any other documentaries or films you've done that you'd like to talk about?
Oh, well, I'm very proud that this is actually the first documentary I've worked on.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
I went to film school 100 years ago. I worked in educational publishing for a long time, and our family is at a position where we could kind of find the time and space.
So that degree finally paid off.
That's
Your mother will be so proud, right?
That's right. 20 years later, right.
Okay. Thank you very much. We've been speaking with Mike Reynolds, documentarian, about the Great Oak movie. And for more information, you can go to greatoakmovie.com. Yeah. And there's also other resources on there. You can find out about the history of everything, not just see the movie. And the movie is 53 minutes, you said?
Yes, it is. And the movie's title is actually Under the Great Oak.
Under the Great Oak. Right.
We use greatoakmovie.com for our website, but if you wanted to go to our Facebook page, which is also really robust and we update frequently, it's at Under the Great Oak. So the film's title is Under the Great Oak.
All right. Thank you very much, Mike Reynolds.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone here.